Welcome to the Amash Files, your one-stop podcast for Justin Amash's march to the presidency, featuring deep dives into who Justin Amash is, campaign analysis from experts, and news from the campaign trail. If you're ready, let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the inaugural episode of the Amash Files. I'm here with my friend Tyler. Tyler, say hi.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
I'm your co-host, Eric, and we're going to be the ones walking you through the next, I don't know how many months is it till the election in November. Is it like 7 months?
About 7, yeah.
These are things I should have figured out before we started this recording. Yeah, about 7 months until the presidency. And super exciting news that came out. So Justin Amash is running for president. I can hardly believe it.
I've been waiting for this day for about 12 years, so I'm pretty excited.
So a little bit of background. I'm a physician anesthesiologist. I practice privately here in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
I'm a fundraiser. I've worked in Liberty Movement fundraising for about 3 or 4 years since I graduated college.
And we both know Justin. I've been friends with Justin for, almost 12 years now, maybe a little longer. Pretty close friends. And so I felt it was important to have a show like this to really have an opportunity for people to get to know Justin better. So I've got my family here in West Michigan. I'm a long-standing Michigander. I left for a couple years to do my medical training and residency out in Iowa. So I stuck around in the Midwest, but came back to Michigan for the beautiful weather and the cloudy skies in November, in which we're just emerging from now in April. It has been snowing the last few days, so it's actually, at some point, we're going to get some spring, I think.
Yeah, like Eric, I'm a lifelong Michigander. Grew up in 2008. I was in Justin Amash's state rep district back when that was all still going on. I left to go to Hillsdale College, but came back, and I currently live in West Michigan as well. So lifelong Michigander, lifelong Justin Amash supporter as well.
Yeah, so I think, I met Justin right before he ran for state house, and before the primary even. And I remember going home to my wife and saying, if this guy, wins, I'll be part of the Republican Party. I'll do whatever I can to help him. But I don't have to worry about that because everybody I support, they lose. Right? Somebody who's like really great politics that match with my own, who are very limited government, very libertarian, let's say, they just tend to not survive. They get wiped out pretty quickly.
Right.
And he has defied the odds every single time. Not only does he win, but he wins pretty handily. Like whenever I think there's an insurmountable challenge in front of him, he just tends to kind of blast right through it.
It is, and you were in Cascade at the time, right?
Yep. So
I was in Caledonia, which is the 72nd district of the state house as well, and his wife and mother came down my driveway. I was 13 years old in 2008, and they handed me a campaign flyer with Justin Amash on it, and that's honestly been the start and the end of it. Learning more about his philosophy, about why he thinks the way he does, why he votes the way he does. It all started then, and I've been following him from the beginning of his political career until now.
That's impressive. So for me, it's the reason I'm so excited is, obviously he's a good friend of mine, and for someone, good friend suddenly running for president, that's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
But the great thing about it, of course, too, is politically we're really aligned really well, and so everything that he wants to do is stuff that I want done, right? And his goals that even when he described to me back before he ran for state house was, I want to try and advance the liberty movement. I want to try and advance the ideals of libertarianism, of free markets and free people. And whatever platform I can get to maximize that, that's what I'm going to go and try and achieve, which is why I ran for state house. And then 2 years later, ran for Congress. And so that's why I've been enthusiastic supporters. And through the years, we had become very close friends. And so just to have someone who you align with so closely and who is, it never seems real because I tend to disparage politicians in general, but someone who really is, genuine and like actually believes in the principles and votes the way that they say they are going to, which is super unusual.
It is. I had, so when I was a student in Hillsdale, I invited Justin to come speak for a club I was president of. And a professor of mine called him the one exception to public choice theory. Basically meaning he actually cared about the things that he said he cared about. He was actually promoting principles and not his own political advancement. And for the entire scope of my time that I've been interested in politics about 12 years now, he is the one person I can truly say cares about the principles he's talking about, cares about liberty, not just his own political advancement.
Right. And so the goal of this show, and I'm so glad you're tuning in to this show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have lots of really cool things. And I'm so excited about this. I actually have a different podcast that I run called The Paradox, which is me just talking about medicine stuff. So certainly welcome to hop on over. There'll be a link to it in the show notes and stuff. But so I have some experience with podcasting, but I really wanted to do something special for my friend. And I think to provide an opportunity for people to really get to know him. So our goals for the show are to expose you to who Justin Amash really is. And we can offer insights that probably you can't get anywhere else. Also, to help people keep up to date with what's going on in the campaign. It's going to be fast moving for a while here, especially. Insights into the campaign strategy. Getting some campaign analysis and thoughts by experts from media and politics and various parties. So I think, we'll try and get some people from the Libertarian Party on as well. You'll have some opportunity to listen to Justin Amash himself. And then my hope is that this show becomes a place for people to send their friends and family, coworkers, to really learn about who Justin Amash is, what he's about, and to learn about libertarianism in the party.
Absolutely. Eric, you have a greater degree of friendship with Justin than I have, but I did have the opportunity when I was in high school and college to work for his campaign. Really learn a lot about what his philosophy is, what he is as a person and as a boss. So I think it can kind of bring the perspective of what it's like to work for Justin on a campaign. And obviously a congressional campaign 8 years ago is not the same as a presidential campaign, but I think the principles still apply. I think the same person still shines through.
Right. And you know how he interacts with people. I think it's you hear these stories about like Kristen Gillibrand, who was nasty to staffers and would yell at them and scream at them, and then you hear about other people who they're nice people. And so I think it's important to kind of know who the person is, because if you're voting, you're supporting someone for president, and let's be honest, as running as a libertarian, it is going to be as uphill a battle as you could possibly have to win the presidency. And I don't think either of us have any illusions about this process. But you want to make sure that you've got the right person, and that you're going to do all the right things to be successful. And I think that's one advantage he's got. If anyone's got a chance, it's I think him.
It is. And I think as someone who's worked for Justin's campaign in the past, and again, this is a number of years ago, the last time I actually worked for him, yes, he is genuine. He is legitimate. He is kind. He knows what he's doing. He's principled, and he knows how to treat other people. I'm not saying no one else can say that, but I can guarantee you Justin Amash should and can say that.
And I think just on a personal note, back in August of 2018, my wife and I lost our middle son, Andy, in a car accident. And, as dark a time as you can have as a parent in your life. And, Justin was there along with other friends that night when we were in the emergency room, basically devastated, crying, and just all of us trying to sort of take in the shock of what had happened. And the next day, he came to the house and he just got me out for a walk. And, for people who are dealing with grief, sometimes just getting out and just doing something and just pulling someone away and just say, let's just go, walk around, we talk or not, don't talk, whatever, just kind of go for a walk. And so we just walked around the neighborhood a couple of times. It was really, partway through, he's like, I just want you to know, I've been sort of pondering this running for president, and this sort of makes me feel like it gives me affirmation that I'm doing I'm on the right course, and that I think it's important to do something, to be bold, and to do things that are important. And so not that that was the only thing that moved him to this decision today, which is almost 2 years, a year and a half later. But I think I think it just speaks to who he is as a person, and how important human relationships are to him, and family, and that's really a big thing for him. And so anyway, I think my hope is with the show that we can really express who he is as a person, because you'll certainly you'll see all things about his votes, you'll hear all the things said by his opponents and by his proponents in the media and elsewhere. But I think, you offer an perspective from inside the campaign, working for him a number of times, and the people, and I know sort of the person, the family. And so I think, we can hopefully give a rounded out view of him that you may not get elsewhere.
Definitely. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff talking about sort of the public persona of what Justin has presented, but not what he is, not who he is as a human being, not who I've known him as for 8 years, who you known him for 12 years. There's a lot beyond what the media sees as him, about what he actually is, what he actually does. And I agree. I think we have the opportunity to present that perspective to people.
And so I hope we can convey that. I would encourage you to send questions to us at the Amash Files at gmail.com. Questions, interview ideas. I think, the more we can try to answer the questions that people have and to give people the best view of who he is and a better perspective of, what he's about, I think that's our goal. And so we're not part of the campaign. I know he has a campaign. I know some of his campaign staff.
No, we're fully independent. Right. No affiliation whatsoever.
No affiliation. I know him, so that helps if I want to get access to talk to him. But outside of that, this is really just me doing something to help a friend and hopefully just help you understand again who he is. I think let's talk a little bit briefly about sort of the first steps here. When you look at the campaign, obviously you can announce you're running for president, and actually technically, right, you open an exploratory committee. This is all FEC, Federal Election Commission rules. I don't understand them. I could learn about them if I cared enough. But essentially, you don't say you're running for president because you had set up an exploratory committee. Anyway, so that's been set up, and so he's running for president, but he's not been. He has to actually get on the ballot, and he's chosen to run in the Libertarian Party, which is not a surprise to anybody, since A, he's libertarian, and B, that's an effective way of getting on the ballot and giving yourself an opportunity to be...
Because they have ballot access from the 2016 election,
right?
Pretty much every state.
Right. So the Libertarian Party's, any sort of third party, so not the Republicans or Democrats, they have oftentimes difficult hurdles to cross based on the state. Some states are very easy. Michigan is an incredibly easy state to get on the ballot if you're a third party. If anyone who's voted sees parties that they've never heard of, and they're consistently there every year, even though there aren't any, there aren't people voting for them very much. So for Michigan, it's very easy. Other states have very onerous, massive, signature gathering efforts that have to be undertaken every year or two. And so I think the Libertarian Party, as of now, is on 37 ballots. I think they expect to get more. Of course, the challenge right now is that with this coronavirus, Tyler and I here are practicing our safe social distancing through the internet, but
we are recording remotely, not near each other.
Right. But that's definitely an issue, and so it might be challenging, and whether there are court cases that are can allow access to it or not.
Yeah, petition access. How do you get signatures when you can't go door to door?
Unless you have 6-foot arms, right? I mean, it's going to be very challenging.
You can leave the ballot on their porch and then walk away, and then they can sign it, and you pick it.
Yeah,
back
I
up.
suppose you could, but to try to stand at a grocery store, wherever a lot of these people are professional petition gatherers. Anyway, so that's a challenge. But his first part will be getting the nomination within the Libertarian Party, and it's not like the Democrats or Republicans. There are primaries in some states, only because Gary Johnson did so well in 2016 that the Libertarians qualify for primaries. But almost all the primaries, in fact, I believe technically all of them, are non-binding, meaning the delegates that are selected are not bound to vote for whoever won the primary. Although in some states, that candidate could then pick a slate of people to represent the state at the national convention.
My understanding is once we get to the national convention, it's essentially whoever wants to come in can come in. I mean, the delegates have full reign.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I would say, though, that the one caveat is, I think, for instance, New York, the Hornberger won that. And Hornberger is one of the, Jacob Hornberger is running for president of the Libertarian Party. He's been running since, I think, December, November. Yep.
Freedom of Future Foundation.
Kind of long time libertarian activist. He's not been part of the Libertarian Party really. He was back in, I think, 90s and maybe 2000. And then he sort of left for about 20 years and then just kind of came back to the party last fall. So he won the primary in New York, and I believe that allows him the ability to pick his delegates. So he can pick who gets to go, and I mean, they're not bound to vote for him, although it's probably much more likely that they would than if it's just random people. Like in Michigan, we selected delegates, but it was based on who showed up and who got the votes to go to the state. And I can tell you in that process, we never said who we've supported. Just why you think you should go as a delegate because you've been acting the party or you make your argument, your pitch. So then let's talk about Justin's nomination, because he is coming in kind of late, right? I mean, so we're talking about 5 weeks or so as we're recording this to the convention, I think. It's the end of May, so maybe math's off. Maybe it's 4 weeks. When he's going to have a lot to overcome, do you foresee that this is going to be a real big problem for him, or do you think this is something that he can overcome?
I think there's kind of two minds to it. There's going to be perception that he's coming in at the last second without having put in the work, which I don't think is true. I kind of come from a non-partisan perspective. He has been advancing liberty on a professional level and a political level for 12 years. Even if he's not advocating for one specific office on one specific party, he's advancing the principles that you hold to. That said, Justin has a national following, a national brand, and a consistent federally elected record of somebody who actually understands liberty and knows how to advance it. So I think there's some who might oppose him for the earlier reasons, but I think the latter reasons are a big strength to him as he continues in this process.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's what's going to have to be balanced between the two, right? I mean, I think one of the contentions that the Libertarian Party has oftentimes is that they have, especially recently, they've nominated these people for, I shouldn't say these people, but Gary Johnson, Bill Weld, Bob Barr, who are former Republicans, who actually were Republicans until right before they declared for the Libertarian Party.
Sure.
And then they sort of disappear. They don't. Maybe they sort of help build the party, but they don't really do a whole lot for the party. Now, that said, Gary Johnson did not do any party building activities in the sense like trying to do recruiting drives for membership or maybe helping tons of candidates run for office, but he did get them a lot of votes in the last election.
He got ballot access. He got the largest proportional representation that the LP ever got. I think that itself is an important thing.
It is. And I think, the argument, I guess, would anybody have been able to do that? Because the two last candidates were so poor, that you have Clinton and Trump, and they're just, so abhorrent. Maybe that's why anybody could have gotten that. I don't tend to think that's the case. I think Johnson was fundamental to getting that as well. But, that's one of the questions that Justin has to answer, and, he'll have to do that over the next couple weeks to try and get that. Because if he doesn't get that nomination, then I think really the presidential run is pretty much over then, because I don't think you can't realistically run as an independent. Certainly now, when you can't even get signatures. I don't even know what
ballot access would be impossible without the third party access.
Yeah, it's funny. You always hear these billionaires talk about how, like, I think Tom Steyer or Mike Bloomberg, I'll just run for as an independent. They say that, but it truly would cost you probably $1 billion to try and get all the.
Bloomberg literally spent $1 billion trying to get the nomination.
Yeah, right. And which he failed to do. I suppose he got something out of it with name ID and probably campaign information and stuff. So he'll probably make. I bet he'll actually end up.
You're too cynical, Eric. I mean, that's part of it.
I think he'll. No, I think he was smart, and that I think he'll make a lot of money on the other end of this whole thing. But,
maybe
because I think it was a business decision more than anything for them. But anyway, I think if you don't have tremendous amounts of wealth, and even more than probably, even if you have lots, it doesn't matter. You have to use one of the parties, either Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Libertarian Party, to really have an opportunity to win. I mean, to mathematically win.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to kind of just to wrap things up, I think what we're going to have in the show is we're going to have a lot of interesting people. I've got a huge list of people I'm going to start contacting and expect to have them on the show. I already have someone who worked with Justin both when he's in the state house and in his DC office. So to give you a perspective of what it's like in the office, because I think, that's something you rarely get anywhere, any sort of, insight into what Justin is like as a boss, because, you're electing the guy as president and he's going to be kind of the boss. Right. And so I think it's important to get that insight, I've already set up a thing to talk to Justin. So we're going to get the words straight from him about why he's running and what's going on. We want you, again, feel better familiar with who Justin is and what he's about, and to really have this show serve as a resource for you to give to your friends and people to learn more about Justin, and hopefully to keep up with what's going on in the campaign, because a lot of things are happening. And that's why, again, I'd really urge you to not only subscribe to the show, and make sure you share it with your friends and people you think might be interested in the liberty movement and the message. But if you have any questions or things, again, get a hold of us at amashfiles@gmail.com, really with ideas and things. And finally, I think if you were old enough, and I feel like, man, I feel really old with you, Tyler. But you're talking about Justin, why you were in middle school when he was running for state house. Anyway, but I think having someone who may remember the Ron Paul campaign, and in 2007, much more so than even 2011 for the 2012 race. The 2007 was totally like it was a true movement. It was crazy. I mean, there are people at University of Michigan chanting "End the Fed." It was a total guerrilla warfare. We had a sort of disorganized campaign sort of set up here. There was no real campaign infrastructure for Ron Paul, but he became a thing, a phenomenon. And the Liberty movement really, I think, ignited. There are all these sort of latent forces that were out there, and they sort of came together, coalesced behind Ron Paul, a guy who, by all accounts, should never have been really in the stage. And yet, for whatever reason, something just kind of happened. I don't know if it was the internet or YouTube or all these things.
It was a moment. I mean, I don't know how to describe what led to it, but it was a moment. And I think Ron Paul really captured that.
And I truly believe that Justin is the next stage, right? Like you always hear about people talk about Ronald Reagan. They say if it weren't for Barry Goldwater, there would have been no Ronald Reagan, right? And I totally feel like there wouldn't be a Justin Amash unless there was a Ron Paul first. That sort of what said, and they actually served together for 2 years in the House, but
they did 8 to 10, yeah.
But
10, 12,
I really feel like this is an opportunity for libertarians to really, for once, get someone who we've got two really weak candidates. I believe. I think Trump's very damaged. I think Biden is Biden, and so I think we have an opportunity to have something really special and fun. And I think it's going to be, however it all turns out, I think it's going to be really fun next 7-8 months up until the election in November.
It is. I mean, there's been, to be honest with you, Eric, I've not had a lot of hope in the political process since 2016 on. But right now, maybe November 2016 on, but right now, this is the first time I've really felt hope that there is a genuine and authentic principled voice that can articulate what it means to believe in individual freedom, who has a genuine chance on the national stage.
Well, I think that sums it up perfectly. And I hope you, again, hang with us, share the show, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope you get a lot of great information from the show. So signing off from episode 1, and look forward to episode 2 where I talk to Justin, and then I got a good insider for someone who worked with him for episode 3. So enjoy.
Thanks for listening to the Amash Files. Please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player and share it with your friends. We'd appreciate it if you left a written and 5-star review too. Send all questions and guest ideas to amashfiles@gmail.com.